Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Agemy Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado.
Dad, you and I are getting ready to wrap up this year, and we went to breakfast this morning, and we're sitting there, we're talking about different things. We're talking about the year in review. We're talking about how things have changed over the years. We're talking about paradigms and how we all have different views of the world, and those are based upon our past experiences. There's so much turmoil in the world right now because we look at each other and we see this person's this way instead of the paradigm of what got them to where they are. Because if we look at how people got there, we can start to understand why they do what they do.
Exactly.
And we're talking about the year in review, and the grandkids are around, and we're doing these things. And I said to you, you need to tell your story so the grandkids can understand, so clients who have been with us for a long time can understand, so people know the paradigms behind Agemy Financial Strategies and the paradigms behind Andrew Agemy and why this company was established.
That's a great point, Daniel. Yes, I agree. I think that would be a perfect thing to put in the book that I've started writing about what we do and why we do what we do. And I always enjoy taking you out to breakfast. The only thing I enjoy more than taking you out to breakfast on a day off like this is taking you out to breakfast when it's snowing out. One of my favorite things. So anyway, that's my paradigm, right? That's where I'm coming from. That's my perspective on things. I like to drive in the snow and especially go to breakfast. I'm Andrew Agemy.
I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about paradigms. And Dad, you started teaching financial principles before you got in the business, and you've been in business for 3 decades now, or starting your 4th decade.
Exactly.
What was the idea behind that? How did you find out about the financial business, and how did it all start for you? What got you interested in finances?
Well, that's an excellent point, Daniel, because, my father was a businessman and was very interested in money. And I think that's the Lebanese heritage that we have that did that. And then, as time had gone on, my brother had introduced me to Larry Burkett with Christian Financial Concepts. And Larry was one that studied the Bible for what it said in regard to money. And I began to study the Bible. And when I studied the Bible for my own benefit, I'd always be drawn to what it said in regard to money. And as I did, I began to see that it had a lot of things to say about money. As a matter of fact, Jesus talked more about money than any other one subject. And there's a lot in the Bible about money. And it's not that money is so important as much as that money is a tool that God has given to us to do his work and to establish relationships and to enhance relationships, because relationships are truly the most important thing from God's perspective. And
that's one of the things we're going to keep talking about the beginning, but that's one of the things that over those 3-4 decades is something that I know that paradigm has built inside of you, which is that money is a tool, right? It's a tool that enhances our relationships with other people's.
Exactly.
And some people can use that negatively. Some people can use that positively. Some people don't understand it at all. That becomes a tool. And the better you use that, right? If you use a hammer for smashing a window, that's not the right use for that hammer. But if you use that hammer for something constructive, to put a nail in and build something beautiful, a house or a building, right?
Right.
It's about how you use that tool.
Exactly. And that's, my paradigm is that, God created the world. In the beginning, God created the world, and that he tells the truth, and he has a way that he set things up, and you reap what you sow. There's certain principles in this world that have results, and you just do things this way, and this happens, kind of thing. And that is very key to what we're talking about, what we're looking at, because with what you just said in regard to how money enhances relationships, and as I say that, and I teach that, and I live that, I pick that up from one of the things, like I believe it's Luke's chapter 16 that Jesus talks about, that he says to use money to build friends for yourselves, and it's not necessarily friends for ourselves as much as it's friends for God, as God created us to have a relationship with him. And that's what life is about, is number one, having a proper relationship with God. Number two is helping others to have the proper relationship with God. And in order to do that, you have to be able to be friends with them. You have to be consider yourself friendly from that standpoint. So that's a significant paradigm that has that I have built my life upon, and that this business has been built upon as we try to serve people.
Yeah, that's great. So, when did you realize, and what made you realize that there was a deficit of financial education?
And that's a great question, Daniel. And as one of the things, one of the things that happened with that was when the market crashed in 2002, when it started to crash in the year 2000, and then of course the dot-com crash was one thing, but that wasn't anywhere near as significant as what happened on September 11th and 9/11, when the market dropped, and then later on that year it dropped even further. But so some of the things are the stock market. And what I'd like to do is, as we talk about this, is give to our audience the paper that we put together, Hard Lessons Learned in Stock Market History, which will give people perspective of that, because history tends to repeat itself more often than not, and if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. So if you'd like that piece on stock market history, please call us 800-725-7616. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Daniel, the other aspect besides what happened with the market was, if we go back to, I'm an ordained minister, and just looking
in what year? Because you I feel like just brought us way forward, because you're talking about 2000, but you started the company in 1990,
right?
And if I understand properly, you were teaching financial principles even before you started a business as a financial planner or financial advisor.
Exactly. So in the early 1980s, I started studying. Whenever I study scripture for my own benefit, I would always be drawn to what it said in regard to money. And and I was teaching money in churches and teaching people how to be able to handle their money, sound financial principles of budgeting, savings, these kinds of things, as a minister. And just saw that within churches there was a great lack of education of how to handle money, and even today, I think churches, there's a lot of things that they're missing out on. But nevertheless, I saw that way back when I just got out of college and started working with churches, and saw that people didn't handle their money necessarily in the way that God means for them to, and they're not necessarily good stewards of what God does, or they could, let's put it a different way, they could certainly be better stewards of the money that God has given to them, and taught that. And then was in the church and ministering in the church, and saw that as I looked at scripture and so forth, saw that as the end times come upon us, that there be famines, recessions, depressions, these kinds of things happening, and that God's people are to be part of the answer rather than part of the problem. That's part of why He gives us the Bible, and to be able to help us to understand His perspective, His paradigm, so that we can help rather than hurt. And
So at this point, you didn't even know the financial business, the financial service industry. You didn't even know it existed, right? You're a
no,
pastor. You're a pastor, and you're teaching your congregation, or you're going and helping other churches.
right. Right, exactly. And I mean, I knew there's there's life insurance, right? Because I had children and I needed to have some life insurance to protect my wife and family should I die, but I didn't know there was this thing called financial service industry. And I was just totally oblivious to that. And it was a real eye opener when I finally found out about that in 1990. I didn't find out
So
about that in 1990.
you, you you had told me at one point in time that there was a specific prayer that you had, and that kind of changed everything for you before you got into the business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I prayed that I asked God that to help us to become better stewards of the money that He's given to us, to help us be part of the answer rather than part of the problem in the world as the end times come upon us, with famines, recessions, depressions, and so forth. As I said, and I prayed that I said, God, please send somebody to help us understand Your principles, help us be better stewards of Your money. I can't do this right now because I'm pastoring this church in Madison, Connecticut at the time, and but I know that You can send somebody. So I prayed that prayer a while, and nothing happened. And so then I just decided, well, God, I'll leave this with You because You make all things beautiful in Your time, and so bring it about in Your time and in Your way. And then I left it with Him, and I forgot about it until years later.
And so you ended up leaving the ministry and starting a business in the financial planning world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the short answer. And I see that it's coming up time for us to be able to take a break. So I'll give the long answer after the break. How's that? If you just joined us, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel. And let's try that again, Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And today's topic is paradigms, and talking about where Agemy Financial Strategies came from and why it exists. We have a book that we'd like to put in your hand that will be able to help you to be able to understand some of the things that we were able to learn and discern decades ago. It's called Financial Insanity by our friend David Scranton and partner. And we'd like to put that in your hand. Quick, easy read book that will give you some perspective about the stock market history, be able to help you to be able to understand that the insanity that goes on from the financial realm. So if you like that book, you can call us at 800-725-7616 or contact us on our webpage at www.agemy.com. Agemy spelled AGEMY.com. And if you like that, let us know and we'll get that book free of charge to you. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So, Dad, tell me more about when you shifted mindsets. So in the 80s, you were teaching financial principles. You went on to pray that God would bring someone to help educate the public, to educate the
Right.
people you saw who didn't understand money in the way the Bible talked about it. And what was the story? How did you transition from being the pastor into starting your own financial planning company?
Well, when I prayed that prayer, I said, God, I can't do this right now myself because I'm pastoring this church. So please send somebody to us. Well, when he didn't, well, time went on, and doors with the church closed, and other doors opened for me to be able to take care of my family, support my family in a different fashion. And as a matter of fact, God gave me a new paradigm, or not a new paradigm, but a new beginning from that standpoint, because he was going to help me. He was leading me in a direction to do the things that he's called me to do, but through a different mode. So what happened was, at church one day, we were praying for the Bible study leader, prayed that God would help me find a job, because I had the church had closed, and the job that I had, the company I was working for, selling cars, had closed from that standpoint. And he prayed, God, please help Andrew, provide for Andrew a place for him to be able to go and to serve you and to be able to support his family. And so one thing led to another. Found myself with a Fortune 100 company in the area of financial services, and that's when I found out about the financial service industry. And God reminded me of that prayer that I prayed at that point, and said, Andrew, remember that prayer you prayed? Well, go to it. So I started with this financial service company, and when I did, I began to see, well, the financial service industry, this is really something. That's pretty cool, because financial service and the ministry, both of them are service, and it's kind of synergistic from that standpoint. But it wasn't long that I began to see that, well, financial service company is kind of oxymoron. Should be called more the financial sales company, or financial sales industry, rather, because it's all about sales. Now, it's not that sales are bad, because nothing happens in our economy if nothing's sold. The question is, how is it sold and how is it serviced, right? Walmart sells, gas station sells, restaurants sell, right? Some restaurants, you get better service in some restaurants than other restaurants. Their food tastes better in some restaurants than others. So it's not the aspect that the problem is not them selling their foods, but it's how they sell it and how they service it from that angle. So with that, when God put me in this and reminded me of that prayer and said, go to it, Andrew, I thought, well, the best way to take care of this mission that God has given to me is be able to serve people. And I want a true financial service in a company. So I want to be able to serve people, educate people, help them to be able to make smart financial decisions. And I know that if I help enough people be able to do that, that I'll be taken care of in that. And so that's what I started out. And so I spent a lot of time just serving people to be able to help them get what they want. And then as a result of that, here we are, starting our fourth decade. And did I cover all the bases best you know?
So you left the financial industry and started a business. You said you started working for a Fortune 100 company, and this was in 1999?
1990.
I'm sorry, this was 1990?
1990.
Okay. And so when you started with that company, what was that like? How did you, leaving the financial industry, or leaving the ministry, coming into the financial industry, how did you educate yourself? That had to be a huge change to go and to learn this. I mean, financial industry is huge. There's so much to know about so many different things. And so how did you make that change?
Baby steps, Bob. Yeah, it was, little by little, right? So first of all, the fact that, God had prepared me for that, because having been in ministry at that time was kind of like being self-employed. So I had a lot of idea, a perspective of how to run a business, so to speak, from being in a ministry like that, and having to take care of things and expenses and taxes and all these kinds of things. And then, of course, with the studying that I had done, following and learning from Larry Burkett, as well as many other things, and studying the Bible on my own purposes, that gave me some of the fundamental, foundational financial information. And then, of course, when you get in this industry, you have to study to be able to get various licenses of various kinds. And then, of course, when you're in that, with this Fortune 100 company, they did a lot of various trainings and whatnot, and went to the home office of this company for a week for an in-depth, heavy-duty training, as well as various other studies and classes and seminars and so forth to be able to learn the various things. And then, of course, one of the best ways of learning is by actually doing, right, and being out there in the trenches, so to speak, where accidents happen, and working with people. And so, of course, from that, I ended up working with, number one, a lot of people from the Christian community initially, and a lot of young people from that standpoint, and was able to help a lot of people. And one of the scriptures God had given me to be able to help me and motivate me at that point in time was James 1:27, that says, "This is pure religion, to take care of widows and orphans under stress and to keep oneself undefiled by the world." So I was I thought, what better way to be able to help widows and orphans in distress, but before they become widows and orphans, and making sure that there's enough life insurance on the mother and the father to be able to take care of anybody should somebody die. So it was a learning process that took a lot of time, and with some of the perspectives that I had, and some of the paradigms, I had to change a lot of paradigms in my life over the years and over the decades to be able to do what I'm doing today. As there was just a lot of different things that I had to deal with, that God helped me and brought mentors into my life, and teachers, and opened up the doors to be able to direct me accordingly. So it was a long process, but it was little by little, step by step.
So we're in the early 1990s, and you're educating yourself, you're learning, you're helping people protect younger people, build up their wealth and protect the future. And tell us a little bit about the 1990s and what around 1994, there was a lot of, my understanding is there was a lot of anxiety, and there was kind of the atmosphere was kind of there was no hope. There was a lot of different things happening in the world, and people just didn't feel, wages really hadn't gone up since the 70s. There was stuff going on. There just wasn't a lot of hope. And then we came into this boom where tech companies started popping up, and the internet was going to change everything, right?
Right.
And
right.
So being in the financial world, how did that affect you? And what was that like, being a young financial professional when all this tech crazy boom started happening?
Well, it was really an interesting experience, because when I got into business in 1990, my wife was your mother was pregnant with your brother Drew, so that was our fourth child, was on his way at that point in time. So, and we continued to have four more children after that, to a total of 8. So the 1990s, we were having babies, and the world, the economy was good. The early 90s, the economy wasn't really good. The car business wasn't that great. That's part of why the company that I worked for went out of business. But the stock market, was methodically going up during the 90s. And in retrospect, from one perspective, even the early 90s, the stock market was good. I mean, there was some years, I think it was 1994 or somewhere in that vicinity, where it had gone down a little bit for the year, but it wasn't in the scheme of how it, because during those periods of times, it wasn't anything to average 10 or 15% per year, because it had some really good years. And then, of course, as the internet came on the scene in the mid 90s, so, and I had a hard time getting my head around that. I remember getting the technology and trying to make ends meet with having my own business, and that was a real paradigm shift. Talk about that, to get involved with computers and the internet and that sort of thing. But then started kind of slowly compounding, and the market started taking off, and by the time we got into the late 80s and the dot-coms coming on the scene, and the market just exploding the way it had, was kind of a very interesting thing, because you read Money Magazine that said five top funds of 1998, and just all these different things that everybody was talking about investing. And it's kind of like, history repeats itself. So we need to know history so that we don't repeat history, right? And that's what in the 90s, it was very much like what's happening today, with how people were talking a lot about the market. And you go to a party and people would be talking about the stock market and how much money they made, and just all these different aspects. And it just kept going, and it seemed like there was no end in sight as far as that goes. And it was, I was calling it the roaring 90s, because it was just going crazy. And by the time the later 90s came along, so it was a very interesting time.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the fact that narratives and names of things, right, they come later. Like in the roaring 20s, nobody called it the roaring 20s. It was 10, 20 years later that they started calling that the roaring 20s, or now, the dot-com bubble, or the dot-com boom, right?
Right.
Nobody called it that at the time. It was just people getting excited, and people were early. Maybe it's kind of like the NFT boom right now, where people see the potential in these things, and they're paying these ridiculous prices for certain things and trading them and whatever. and people got it right with the dot-com bubble.
Right.
Not on every company.
Right.
They got it right. It changed the world. But it was another 10 years before that happened. They were 10 years early, and there was a lot of pain in between watching these things go up. Even Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world today, right?
Right.
It took 13 years before that came back to where it had been.
Right. Exactly. And even Cisco, where Cisco was in February of 2000. I mean, we're not that far away. This is being aired the weekend, New Year's weekend, and of 2022. And Happy New Year, everybody. And but so we're almost to 22 years from that point. And today, Cisco has still not hit that share price that it was in February of 2000. As good of a company as Cisco is, it still hasn't done that. So it was this a very crazy thing. Like I say, people had the right idea, but it was just early. With that, I want to remind you, if you just picked up listening to us, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is paradigms, and how Agemy Financial Strategies got started. We like to give you a book to be able to help you to be able to research some of these things. Very easy read book. If you're a slow learner, take you maybe 2 or 3 hours to be able to get your way through. It's called Financial Insanity. And the definition of insanity: doing the same things, doing the same way, expecting different results, right? So Financial Insanity, it's what the book that we have, and you can have that by calling 800-725-7616. We'll be right back after this.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Visit us online at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So that somebody asked me the other day, Actually, it was my sister-in-law, and she asked how you went from being a mailman and a mechanic and a pastor and then got into the business. And I knew kind of the general idea, but I didn't know the order of all of those things. And one of the things that I remember is going to churches with you, and you would put on a presentation. You would put on an educational event, and you would teach people. And I don't know if that's when you were in business or if that was before you were in business, in the financial business. But I remember it started with that educational approach of you going around and teaching the masses how to be good stewards of their money.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, being a mechanic was back high school days, college days, and out of college. And then when I first got married, we moved to the shoreline in Connecticut, and that's the way I was pastoring and being a mailman at that point. And then went from was eventually able to be full-time with the church, and then at another point had to go back to selling cars and still pastoring at the church. And then when that kind of exploded, and then went into the financial industry. So when you were going around with me, that was in the 90s and 2000s, I think, to where I was able to go into educate churches and people within churches, and then individuals and families and businesses, and all those kinds of things, being able to help them be a better steward, and helping them understand God's perspective and God's paradigm on finances from that angle. And that's what created the foundation of Agemy Financial Strategies, and has compounded upon itself from there, and it becomes what it is today.
So that's one paradigm that kind of hasn't changed. The idea of how you educate, the idea of how we at Agemy Financial educate people has changed. But the premise of a company that's focused on education first, it is still intact and stronger than ever, with the things like the YouTube channel or the radio show or all the books and educational papers we put together and just give to people. It
Right.
cost us money, but that's not what it's about. It's about helping people understand
Right.
these principles that no one is out there teaching.
Exactly. And that gets back to that, foundation of that story that we talked about earlier, where this was the financial service industry, but it should be called financial sales industry, because people within this industry, they don't do a lot of teaching. They do a lot of selling and trying to twist people's arms, and whatever the case may be, and they may have some knowledge, or they follow they either have knowledge themselves, or they follow the knowledge that's being passed down to them from the hierarchy of the company that they're working for. And that's what I did in the early 90s when I was working for this company. But I recognized that wasn't going to help people in the ways that people needed to be helped, especially when the market fell the way that it did in the year 2000 to 2002, and the stock market cut in half, and saw that people needed to be educated. They needed to know what was going on, and I was wondering why I hadn't been taught that stuff.
Right. So back to 1996, 1997, things were going really good. Markets were booming. These tech companies that are going to change the world. All you have to do is put money into anything, and you're going to make money.
Right.
And this is something that survivorship bias kind of clouds our vision when we think about this, because we think about Microsoft, and we think about Apple, and we think about Amazon, and we say, well, if you just bought stuff and just held it, you'd be fine. But there's graveyards full of companies that didn't make it. And there's also mutual funds.
Right.
That didn't make it. That your company at the time was telling you, buy these, you can only make money, and you believed them.
Right. And I believed them so much, I invested a bunch of my own money into those. And, and then I proceeded to lose 85% of the money that I put into those in 2000s. And I was like, I was not happy about that. and today, and I just thought, like what I was taught, it'll come back. You leave it in for the long haul, it'll come back. And certainly the internet was stuff that, that the stuff I had invested in that will, and it has come back and has done well. But guess what happened to my money? Nothing. My money, like you said, I didn't get any more money. That 15% of what I invested, that's all I ended up with. I had invested back then in mutual funds, and those mutual funds had been rolled into other mutual funds. But I never made back my money. I lost it, and even though I didn't sell it, I lost it because it never came back. I agree with you. It's been crazy, those things, and that's all that stuff. My experience with that, what Mike and with the market in general has happened, and made me say, hey, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. I need to research this thing to find out if I'm being told the truth, because it doesn't seem like it. My clients are losing money. I'm losing money. Nobody likes to lose money. And so what is going on? And that's when I was able to go back and look at stock market history and some of the things, from that standpoint, to be able to help me be able to be in a better frame and do better in the business. And so as a result of that, I changed my paradigm in business from a stock market based approach, from an accumulation based approach, just putting it away and leaving it for a long haul, from a young person's perspective and paradigm, to a paradigm recognizing that, well, there comes a time when you have to take the money out. There comes a time when you want to get more conservative. As people get older, they tend to become more conservative. There's a different way of doing things from when you put money in to when you take money out. So I changed, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is I changed my business model from being that of a growth only to being a growth and income model, to be able to help people grow money the old-fashioned way, through dividends and interest. And it was, in retrospect, it was a great move and a great opportunity that I took advantage of at the time.
So I mean, this is devastating. You had your hands tied. You were obeying. You were doing exactly what the company told you to do.
That's
They
right.
had their CFAs or their money managers or whoever they were,
Yep.
telling you to buy these mutual funds that can't fail, and it all fell apart. And you lost money,
Mm-hmm.
and your clients held you accountable.
Right. That's the part I didn't like. Yeah.
And you said, well, first off, I've been trying to teach these good principles, but I'm listening to this Fortune 100 company who's telling me how to do my job, who's telling me what to put these people money in.
Right.
And, we've given out that book, Richest Man in Babylon, and it talks exactly about that. It talks about people going and hiring the blacksmith,
Yeah.
to go buy, diamonds for them overseas.
Right.
And how that doesn't make any sense. You need someone who understands. So you realized at that point in time, over 2 decades ago, you realized that there was a problem here. You were trusting the blacksmith,
Right.
who was advertising themselves as they knew what they were talking about.
Right.
And you decided to make a change. So from 2002, 2003 on, you did how you made massive changes to your company, to your investment style, to your education, to the way you educated people. How did you make that move?
How did I make that move? Well, it was one I was kind of forced into from one standpoint, but also willingly left. This Fortune 100 company that I'd been with for so much time, said to me, well, they've always taught me, do what's in the best interest of the client. And that's what I always did. And it was kind of like a three-legged stool: the company, myself, and my clients. But I recognize in the back of my head from the very beginning, I recognize that someday the company may not be there anymore. So it's just going to be me and my clients. So what happened is that, when I was looking and did my study and doing my own study and my own due diligence on what was available and what was good for clients, and what was in their best interest, I started offering those options to my clients, and the company said, you can't do that because it went against their business model. So I said, well, fine. Well, if you're not going to let me do this, I'm going to go off and I'm going to do this on my own, because I think this is what is in the client's best interest. And, that's the whole thing behind a fiduciary. We ended up becoming fiduciaries to do what's in the client's best interest. And that's why not all fiduciaries are created equal. These companies, these CEOs of these companies are fiduciaries for the stockholders. And so they have to do what's in the best interest of stockholders, regardless of what's in the best interest of the account holders, or at least if something's really good for the stockholders and maybe not so good for the account holders, they have to do what's in the best interest of the stockholders. And so then everybody who works for those presidents of those companies is a fiduciary for the president of those companies, who's a fiduciary for the stockholders first and foremost. And that's where I decided I wanted to become a truly independent registered investment advisor, fiduciary, so that I could do what's in the best interest of my clients. And it was something that was slow. It was something that cost me a lot of time. It cost me a lot of money. And it's kind of like starving to death on rabbit. What that means is that you can eat, if you just have a diet of rabbit, it takes more energy to consume rabbit than you get from it. And so if you just have a steady diet of rabbit, you end up dying because you're not getting enough energy from it. And so that's what I had done until I was able to get things switched around to be able to work for the client's best interest and be able to put them in a position that they could depend upon.
So this was a few years of just soul searching and education, and looking back through not only 100 years of market cycles, but thousands of years of market cycles. And when I say markets, I'm not talking about the NASDAQ or the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones, right? Because those haven't been around for that. But cycles of markets, there has always been markets. If that was trading, beads, or if that was sailing ships
Tulips.
to bring,
right.
There's always been markets. And so you spent these years educating yourself and studying cycles. And what did you find?
Daniel, that's a great question. And I'm going to defer that to when we come back from break, because we need to take a break here. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today, we're giving away the book Financial Insanity by Dave Scranton to give you some perspective and of what it was that I studied and what the types of things that I learned to be able to put my clients in a better position today than they were in previous years, or than what a lot of people have, because you need to know a lot of things that aren't necessarily taught. Today's topic is paradigms and how Agemy Financial Strategies got started. But if you like that book, Financial Insanity, please call at no charge 800-725-7616, and we'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
And we're back. We're talking today about paradigms, and we're talking about how Agemy Financial Strategies, how Andrew Agemy came to be who they are. And our past experiences shape our paradigms, they shape the way we see everything. And this is such an important thing to understand because the way people do something, it matters why they do it. And it matters how they got to those belief systems. Back in school, when I was learning, mom would say, give her the math problem. And she'd say, no, I want to see how you figured it out, because she wanted to make sure that we understood what we were doing, not that we accidentally guessed the right answer until something difficult came up and we didn't know how to do it anymore. You found out the hard way that the professionals, the people who were telling you the right way to do things, knew how to do it as long as everything went well. And then as soon as something went the wrong way, you got were left holding the bag.
Right. Exactly. What I did was I went back and I studied stock market history, and, and I began to see that there's certain predictable and repeatable trends in the stock market, that every 20, 25 years, it switches from a bear cycle to a bull cycle to a bear cycle to a bull cycle. And these are long-term secular cycles that I'm talking about, not short-term cycles, because that happens a lot more often than that. And when that happened, I recognized, well, why haven't I been being taught this? And what I realized is the reason I haven't been being taught this is because Wall Street's shtick is to have your money in the market as long as possible, because they make money when the market goes up, they make money when the market goes down, they make money when the market goes sideways. But the typical person only makes money when the market goes up. So their goal is to have as much of people's money in the market for as long as possible. So they come up with this idea. They say, oh, the market always goes up. Just leave it in for the long term. Well, when you're 60 or 70 or 80 years old, you no longer have the long term. You need your money. That the long term that they're talking about, and they're not clear. They don't define what they're talking about. What the long term that I realized and studied and come to know is it's a long term for a business. You take a business, it goes in perpetuity, right? It just continues. There's no lifespan, so to speak, of a business, where to an individual, they're going to live to maybe 80, 90, 100 years old, and then the money passes on to wherever they decided it passes on to. So you're not in it for the long term. And that's how people get sucked into running out of money in their lifetime, because they follow Wall Street's rhetoric and the rhetoric of the talking heads on television and so forth that says, oh, the market always goes up, and you're in it for the long term. And as long as everything is going well, that works. But in these market cycles, we recognize that things don't always go well, just like it didn't go well in 2002 when the market dropped, didn't go well in 2008 when the market dropped, didn't go well in March of 2020 when the market dropped. The good news about that was that what didn't happen, it wasn't very long. Whereas in 2000 and 2008, it was 7 years and 5 years respectively before things came back. But that's the thing that people are not always, that's the information that people are missing when it comes to, oh, leave it in for the long haul. Some people don't have the long haul.
So time horizons is a big deal when we're talking about investing money, because if you're an institution or you're a pension fund or your endowment fund, that just, it goes forever, and it doesn't have to draw money. Now, if it draws money, they start investing for income, but we'll get to that. But so the time frame, if you were able to in 1900 put your money into a fund and never touch it until today, and just let it participate in the companies, you're fine. But most people are not able to do that for two reasons. One, because they need to buy a house, they need to buy a car, they need to send their kid to school, they need to retire. And it terrifies them when we go through these cycles where there's 50% corrections or there's 25% corrections. you learned that there are other options, other ways of investing that are not Wall Street's favorite, that don't pay Wall Street, that people can invest in to protect them and to protect their families.
Right.
What are some of these strategies that you found, and how did they work? Because as we came into 2006 and 2007, the same kind of hype started happening again that you saw in 1996, 1997.
Right.
But your firm now is a completely different firm. And talk to us a little bit about what happened as the hype in the real estate market started happening, and your new found tools through learning about market cycles. How did that work out? What did it do for you and for your clients?
Well, that's a great question, and the best way for me to describe how that worked out for me and my clients was, you just said, well, how were things working in 2006, 2007? Well, there's newfound options and ways of methodology of doing things for people. We all know what happened in 2008 when the market dropped like 60% from where it had been in 2007. And so in 2010, I was holding a client appreciation party, had about 150 people in the room, and asked for a show of hands of who lost money in 2008, 2009 on my suggestion. No hands went up. And that was so comforting to me to recognize and understand that people didn't lose money, because those people that listened to me did not lose money, because the things that we were able to employ that Wall Street doesn't necessarily subscribe to or tell you about or give favor to are those things, the universe of income producing bond and bond-like instruments that produce dividends and interest that allow you to make money even when the stock market goes down, or at least not lose money when the stock market goes down, depending how you invest. So that was a beautiful option to be able to give to people. That was a great response I was able to get as a result of what I was able to take people through at that point in time. It was wonderful.
So as your paradigms changed from going to kind of this focus on people building wealth and accumulation, which any fool can do, right? You pick an S&P 500 fund and you just dollar cost average and close your eyes, and you have a long time frame. You have 30, 40 years. And so the horizon is much different. When we look at these cycles that repeat themselves, if you have this long horizon, those cycles become buying opportunities for young people because you have the horizon. Whereas no one's out there helping and educating people who are coming to that retirement phase of life, right? Everyone's focused on that accumulation, right? It's kind of like if we look at the tech bubble, and we look at the tech bubble crash or the tech bubble boom, it's kind of like a VC, a venture capital way of investing, right? Where they say we're going to invest in 100 companies, and most of them are going to fail or lose everything. 3, maybe 4 of them are going to do all right, and one will be happy if 1 or 2 of them does what we think it could do, because that will take care of everything. And that may work for some people. Some people will say, I don't want to do that at all. That sounds horrible. Some people will say, that'll work for me because I'm working, I got a good job. If I lose all my money, I can start again. But if you're coming up to retirement, who's teaching you that there's a different way of looking at this, that you don't have to take that crazy aggressive VC style approach to your money, or that you don't have to put your retirement on hold because we're in a recession?
Who's teaching that? Well, a true retirement income specialist is teaching that. And just like people go to their doctors, there's generalist doctors, and then if you have a heart issue, the generalist might be able to help you with that a little bit, but he's going to suggest you go to the cardiologist who's a specialist in that area. And that's the same thing, what you're talking about, Daniel. You got these most professional financial people are on the accumulation stage. They work with 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. Everybody they say the same thing. Whereas an income specialist works with people in and close to retirement and is focused on being able to help them do what they need to get done, to be able to have the income that they need to be able to last the rest of their life so that they can have a stress-free retirement. And that is the people that are typically educating people on how to have this income and how not to run out of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting how the focus has changed as you've learned more about the cycles and as you've learned about market history. A lot of people who are not in the industry may not realize, but it's a big deal to be in the financial world for starting on your fourth decade. A lot of people don't make it because typically what happens is people come into the industry, they sign up, it's easier to get your financial license than it is to get a hair license,
Right.
in Connecticut. And and so they sign up, and as long as everything's doing good, any fool can make money. But it's being able to manage and understand cycles to be able to help your clients protect what they've built up. It's two different styles between trying to build wealth or having wealthy people who are trying to protect what they've already built. And understanding that these things are repeatable and there's ways you can risk manage that. Find people who have made it for 3 decades, 4 decades in the business, who understand cycles. They're not guessing, right? They're not guessing. They're not using you as a guinea pig to figure out how to protect or risk manage people's wealth.
Exactly. There's a lot of other scary things when you talk about that because of the people that don't learn, don't grow, don't educate themselves within this industry, and they do the same things the same way, all ad infinitum, and that doesn't work today. Everything's changing. We need to change. We need to be able to stay on top of those changes for clients to be able to make sure that they have what they have to be able to have a stress-free retirement. Well, I see that we're running out of time today. We wish you all a happy new year as 2022 comes upon us here. And we have a book that we like to put in your hand called Financial Insanity to be able to help you to not keep doing the same things the same way, expecting different results. And you can have that book by calling us at 800-725-7616. And until next time, you too can have a stress-free retirement.